Okay, so to get us started, our big debate focuses on the business that the club has done during this latest transfer window as Ange Postecoglou continues to fine-tune the squad in what is now his fourth window. I think I've said that about 3 times. I need to get new lines.
Window.
Yeah, I need a new writer. Anyway, 3 key questions. Question number 1, has he recruited in the right areas? Question number 2, has anyone moved on that you'd rather have seen the club keep? And ultimately, question number 3, have we come out the window stronger than we were at the start of it? James, your initial response to that?
What was question 1?
So has he recruited in the right areas?
Yes.
Has anyone been moved on that you'd rather have seen the club keep? And ultimately, have we come out the window stronger than we were at the start? This could be a really short debate.
Yes. So when you're writing questions, you want open questions. So they're very closed questions, I would say. But yeah, I think it's been an outstanding window, and I think Ange would say the same. I think there are still areas to tighten up on, but everything we wanted to do in this particular frame, we've done. I'm sure Ange would have rather kept a Juranovic around the building, maybe a Giakoumakis, but when guys are putting their head above the parapet, you're gone. As you always say, you're all the way in or all the way out. And for those two, Giakoumakis yet to follow, but it looks like he'll be all the way out as well. We're very happy with the performance, and we need to start shining a light on the guys, in the recruitment team. That's Mark Lawwell and co. They're doing an outstanding job. Of course, they've been doing that for since before Lawwell came in, but it's now starting to look very, very slick.
Yeah. Matt, speaking of all the way out, have you enjoyed James's last appearance on the Celtic Exchange?
It's been great working with you, James, thanks. So, have we recruited in the right areas? Yes. Johnston in the door before Juranovic, Kobayashi in the door before Jens leaving, and Oh being in the door before Giakoumakis' predicted exit. I don't think you could say much fairer than that. Iwata also in before Abelgard went back, or just around the time Abelgard went back. So clearly, and just seen him in training, seen limited game time. Certainly Abelgard would probably fit the limited game time more than anyone else. I agree with James on Jens. Thought probably was something there that could have been worked on long term, but ultimately Ange, like he probably has with Giakoumakis as well, has been really, really harsh, and maybe even Juranovic too in terms of Champions League performances. Guys that we've spent a bit of money on, that are experienced, that he's brought in, less so Jens, but definitely Juranovic, Giakoumakis, and he's just went, no. And we've got those replacements in. I personally think Johnston looks, dare I say, very early days, I think he might be an upgrade. I think he might be an upgrade.
The only place, I think he could actually do a game or two once Charleston's back to really, really work on the final third side of things. I think he's excellent coming forward, I think he's excellent at the back. It's just all very new for him, but I think you're right, the fundamentals are there that could be an upgrade.
I think the athleticism's the thing that stands out to me, and that ties right in with Ange. Now, Juranovic, I watched him doing shuttles during pre-season, and Juranovic is probably the fittest and fastest player there. Maeda in terms of fastness, but he was doing the shuttle runs and he was outrunning everybody that was with him. It was incredible to see. So you knew that was in there. I think what would probably be the most disturbing thing about Juranovic is I don't really feel that he kicked on after that first season. His head seemed to be turned in the summer, and I just think that a combination of factors, including the mid-season World Cup, meant that we just never seen that natural improvement and kick on that you would expect to see, that you would have hoped to see. And obviously I just picked up on that and thought, no, your time's up.
Despite the very deliberate inverted fullback approach that Ange takes, first and foremost, as a defender, you must be able to defend. And I think we've seen some weaknesses in Juranovic's defensive game, whereas Johnston comes in and you can see primarily he's a defender. He likes the rough and tumble, he likes the physical stuff, but he's also got something to offer moving forward, and that'll only improve working under Ange. So I think you're right, Miff, it could potentially be an upgrade, and we'll wait and see. So just to summarise the incomings, 4 major deals at the moment. We might have more as we get into the final hours here, but Yuki Kobayashi, 22 years of age, left-sided centre-half. He came in from Vissel Kobe, Kyogo's old team, on a 5-year deal. You've then got Alistair Johnston, 24 years of age, right back from CF Montreal in the MLS, again a 5-year deal. This is kind of the norm with Celtic now, as we've seen. Tomoki Iwata, he was then confirmed early January, 25 years old, defensive midfielder, Ange's old side, Yokohama Marinos, and it's this deal similar to Maeda's. It's an initial loan deal, which will then go on to become a long-term deal, probably 5 years. And finally, that was confirmed last week, 21 years of age, striker from Suwon Samsung Blue Wings, 5-year deal, $2.5 million. So Are those the key areas we should have been shoring up in, James? So left-sided centre-half, right-back, defensive midfield and striker. Were those the most important areas in this window?
Yeah, but you kind of have to take Johnson and O out of things because they're really just, we've got one out, one in for those positions. So I think we had to improve in our striking options before Giakoumakis was for leaving and O was coming in. So I think we're still like there. Although in saying that, you couldn't bring in a proven striker there because 3 for 1 is really hard. 2 for 1 is difficult. 3 for 1 is nigh on impossible. What I was really looking for was a young up-and-comer, getting someone that they kind of, the talk was that Ronnie Dial had Haaland on his list. To Lawwell went, nah, and he was like 17, 18, he was banging goals. You're looking for someone like that you can take and coach and get goals out of them, but they're not going to be overly demanded in terms of appearances off the bench and stuff like that. So not so much we could say about striker and right back. I think we had cover anyway at right back, and I don't mean that as any slight to Tony Ralston. I think Ralston has been, a first team player this season, particularly in light of Juranovic. So the two of those guys, Ralston and Johnston, they'll just duke that out. So the really interesting one for me is Iwata because of the versatility, and UK as well. His versatility across the back left hand side. So we were looking at, right, we want 4 centre halves, Carter Vickers, Starfelt. Now we've got UK, and it was going to be Jens or Welsh. I still think Welsh will go, if not now, then in the summer, because it's Iwata that can step back into that role. So he's giving you cover at centre half as well. Mm-hmm. It's these versatile signings that Ange's been looking for, that you're not, a nailed on, centre half, left wing, whatever it may be. You've got a bit of versatility. If I need you over there, I can use you without square peg round hole in it.
Yeah. If only I had some handy quotes here about how Ange intends to use Tomoki Iwata and his versatility.
Myself and Ange are just so,
Yeah. So Ange was speaking about Iwata and how he plans to use him. So he says it gives us more options and we can change things around a bit. We can even change the formation at times, not necessarily short term, but over the long term. Obviously, Callum's been outstanding, and he's outstanding wherever you play him. We had a period when he was out though, and we put Matt O'Reilly back there. Matt did a great job, but we didn't have an obvious guy who could come in and play that role. Tomoki is a different type of number 6, and I think he and Cal could play together. That's something we'll look at. The key thing is it gives us more options and flexibility around the way we can set up the team. The beauty of having someone like Callum is that wherever you put him, you don't lose any effectiveness. Miff, does this lean towards the possibility of Ange flipping that midfield 3 and maybe having 2 defensive midfielders sitting in Europe next season?
I think that's what it alludes to. I think the tactical flexibility probably comes from, there was games that we were dominating, then there were periods we were on the back foot, and we ourselves allowed the game to be stretched. I think we were quite just naive would be the word that I would use, but Ange probably felt he didn't have the personnel within the squad just to go and put on, I think we would agree McCarthy's probably not up to Champions League level these days. Was at one point, but probably not anymore. So with those things considered, having a plan B, and the fact that Ange is willing to look at the first season in the Champions League and instigate a plan B, that's good news for us, because I don't think we would want another another campaign to go the way that one did. There was so much hope in it in terms of performance, but ultimately it's a results business, and I think Ange appreciates that. If you want to dine at the top table, you need to find more than one way of winning. Yeah.
Keen to explore where you lads feel that we might still be light at this moment in time. I've said it a few times now in recent shows, goalkeeper and left back for me, not right now, it's not an acute problem, but I do think we need to look at a succession plan for Joe Hart. And Miff, we had a wee chat on the post-match yesterday. I'm just not sure about Bernabei yet, what's happening. He wasn't even in the squad at the weekend. It's not particularly encouraging for a guy who spent 3 odd million. He's not injured, he's just not in the picture at this moment in time. So in terms of squad depth, I've got a graphic here in front of me. I know you lads seen it earlier on, but you've got your goalies, Hart, Siegrist, Bain, 2 right backs we mentioned, Johnston and Ralston, Taylor and Bernabei at left back. We've got 5 centre halves if you include Bose and Lawwell, so CCV, Starfelt, Kobayashi, Welsh, Lawwell. Centre mids, we've got a whole host of bodies in there right now, so Callum McGregor of course, Aaron Moy, Iwata, Abelgard, Idaguchi and McCarthy, and I'll get to them in a second because Ange just talked about the kind of potential plans to move them out. You've also got Rio Hitati, Matt O'Reilly, David Turnbull, more attack-minded midfielders. On the left wing, Jota, Daisen Maeda and Sead Haksabanovic. On the right, Leah Labada and James Forrest, and up top now, Furuhashi, O and Giakoumakis looks like he's moving on. So as I say, goalie and left back for me, James. Do you see any other gaps there? We seem to be well stocked in various areas.
Well, maybe a wee bit light in right wing. There's a lot of the top talent likes to play in the left. If you really are trying to shoehorn at the moment in terms of form, Jota and Dyson in the same team, and they both like to play on the left. So well stocked there. Haksabanovic is a left or a 10 kind of thing. He's a bit more flexible. But on the right, you've got Abada. James is still, got a bit to play, but it's, we need to be thinking, and Ange is thinking, right, how am I setting up for Champions League group stage next season rather? And no slight, but James is not that, so if there's an injury to Abada, you're going to be putting the left guys on the right and things like that. So there may be a wee bit light there. Don't see any youth coming through that could take that at the moment. So I think there's something to do there. Midfield-wise, maybe we're a wee bit light in the attacking side based on O'Reilly's form, who I think he's a real talent, O'Reilly, but he's just had a disjointed season between different positions, World Cup break, and then coming back to his old position. You've seen him on Sunday, just frustrated, and then you get to that trying too hard phase, and he's definitely doing that. So can we get O'Reilly back to where he was last season and showing his real potential, or is he a big number sale? Because there's a lot of interest in him, given his versatility and his talent.
Yeah, and I could imagine there'll be teams looking at him despite his poor form at the moment. We know he's got it, or most of us know he's got it. Paddy's not a big fan, but we'll see how that goes. Miff, I don't want to speculate too much, but I think James mentioned O'Reilly there. I think Abada may be our next big sale. There's a bit of talk about how Celtic have offered him a new deal, and that's not quite been settled just yet. So I don't want to pick something out of nothing, but he's a young, exciting talent. You can see why many teams across Europe might be looking at him. And all of a sudden, if we were to lose him and James Forrest was the only natural right-sided forward or right winger, we might be a bit light in there right enough.
Possibly. I think the talent that you mentioned there, James, around whether it be Haksabanovic, Maeda and Joe, I think they've all got the ability to play in the right. You could argue they are less effective when they play there, but
that's all.
I don't
think they all can, but less
effective.
effective.
I would say you're probably well enough covered. I take the point about Forrest. He's there as part of the squad, but when you're talking about starting the Champions League, you're probably even wanting an upgrade in Abada, never mind Forrest. But I agree with the sentiment about O'Reilly and Abada, probably the two most sellable assets given their age and the amount of potential that they show. But I would argue the point that it's probably those next couple of years where they're going to add to that value, and the exposure we give them is going to be key to that. So I would hope that they aren't the next ones that we sell. I still feel we need another striker, established or not. I take James's point that if you brought in somebody, let's say Kevin Nisbet's the one that jumps to mind. I know he knocked back that move to Millwall, but if you bring in an established SPL striker like Nisbet, he's probably not going to move Hibs to sit in the bench every week.
The dough would be different.
The dough would be different, but
he's life changing for him.
He's not going to get, he's not going to get a lot of opportunity.
What do you think he's on, like 3-4 a week or something? Something like that. So you can move that to 17, 15, 16 or whatever,
It's interesting, just very briefly on this, but that he travelled, done the medical or whatever at Millwall, and then changed his mind. I'm not saying it's a Celtic thing, but something's...
you maybe get a feel for the culture as well as the medical. You're getting a feel for what's this, where's this club going, and what's the atmosphere like, But then he's come back to Easter Road, so...
I think that there's something there. I think he'll go somewhere.
Yeah, I think he will. So there.
Yeah. Aside from these various positions outfield, I'd mentioned the goalkeeper. So I think Joe Hart's been brilliant for Celtic. He's having another good season. I think Sunday was the 5th clean sheet in a row. But at nearly 36 years of age, we should be looking at a succession plan. That's just common sense. Hard to tell because we've not seen much of him, certainly in a Celtic shirt, but I don't think it's Siegrist. It doesn't seem like he's chapping the door hard enough. He's been a wee bit unlucky with some injuries, some niggly stuff. We know it's not Scott Bain, with all due respect. He's a third choice goalie. So it's an area we should be looking at.
Absolutely. You're kind of looking for, Fraser Foster at his peak against Lazio and stuff like that. That kind of like, you need that in the Champions League, worldy saves that really just pull you out of the fire. But Foster couldn't play with the ball at his feet, so I'm not advocating any kind of, going back in time and trying to sign him. But you're looking for that kind of player that, is commanding, can pull off worldy saves, but also can play Ange's football. it's a big ask. It's difficult. It's probably better that you find potential and train a guy up like that. But that's not going to be quick.
I don't know the name of the player involved, so this is almost useless. But somebody was talking about a Liverpool reserve goalie who's been trained up in that way. Yes, potentially.
He's 30 million.
Right. Back to the drawing board. No, but I'm thinking, do we get someone who's maybe not those individuals, but someone who's not quite going to make it at a Liverpool, Man City, or whatever, but they've been trained in that way. The likes of Celtic have benefited a lot from Man City youths who haven't made it at that level. Could we potentially be shopping in those areas for a goalkeeper?
And you can do swaps, because Giorgos is a decent sub goalie. So if you want their sub goalie, you can give them a decent goalie in return. It's not like you're leaving them with nothing.
I think Pep's crying out for Benji Siegrist. He's saying, I sent him
He's been
down.
following his Instagram. He's like, he's a guy.
No, but I do think we need to plan for a goalkeeper who is good with the ball at his feet. We can clearly see that's how Ange wants to play. Joe Hart has adapted admirably most of the time.
I think he's done well.
But he's had some moments. Leipzig away was a clanger, for example. But anyway, we know that moving forward we need someone there, so it's an interesting area. And I'm sure the club will have a close eye on it. I want to take a wee look at the exits and not to dwell too much on stuff that we've spoken about in terms of Juranovic and Giakoumakis. But Juranovic, as we know, is now at Union Berlin. 7.5 million, could rise to 10. He had an assist on his first game for them last week, but he was in sub not used at the weekend, which was interesting.
Maybe just a bit of rest.
Who knows? But they're sitting second in the league. They're in a good position. We now know that Moritz Jens has been, sent back to Lorient, and he's actually gone out to Schalke for the rest of the season. They're rock bottom of the Bundesliga at the moment, so work to be done. Scott Robertson, the young midfielder's gone to Fleetwood Town with Brunei on a free transfer. And at the moment, TBC, but Giakoumakis looks like he's going to Atlanta United in the MLS, a fee of around 3.5 million, rising based on some bonus payments. The latest quotes from Ange on Giakoumakis, so he says there's still speculation around him, there's nothing concrete, but it's fair to say there is still interest. As with all these things, there has to be agreement amongst all parties. The player needs to want to go to the destination, and we as a football club have to be satisfied that our demands are being met, and the interested club need to be happy too. It takes a little bit of time, but I'm pretty relaxed about it. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, he stays part of our group moving forward. Muff, do you think we should have held out on any of these players, the four that I've mentioned there, or are you happy enough with how that's played out? Have the club made the right calls?
I think they have in the context of the way things have developed. If you look at it purely in ability, would I like to have kept Juranovic? Yes, I think he's class, and he showed that at the World Cup as well when he's concentrated, switched on. I would have liked to have kept that version of Juranovic, but ultimately it goes back to a much repeated point on here. If there's any inkling that the player doesn't want to be within the group, we move them on. And seems to be very, very insistent that that's the case. And lessons learned from previous campaigns where we've failed keeping disengaged players just doesn't work, and it has an effect in the overall squad. So for me, we're right to move them on, but Giakoumakis and Juranovic have already proven their worth to have around the squad, so I would have liked to have kept them. We are saying goodbye to a lot of goals in Giakoumakis. He is a proven goal scorer, and he works within the system, because your centre forward in Ange's system doesn't see a lot of the ball. They're just asked to put the ball in the back of the net, and he was pretty good at that. I think it's just a reaction to new agent maybe asking for a bit more money than was on the table, or chancing it a bit and asking for a lot more money that was on the table. Who knows? We never know the final details of these things. But I do think there's also the fact that we passed up a hell of a lot of chances in big games in the Champions League, of which Giakoumakis was partly culpable. And so as a result of that, Ange's just went out and thought, well, for value for money, I can probably bring better in for cheaper, and he's done it.
I think Ange very much takes the approach staying still is the equivalent of going backwards, and he's always looking to improve. And Giakoumakis is fine, he's good, he can be effective, he's popular with the fans, but we can possibly do better. In fact, we can definitely do better, and I think that's what Ange has seen, whether it's with O or maybe a third striker coming in. James, do you have any qualms yourself about the four guys, Juranovic, Jens, Robertson and Giakoumakis leaving the building?
Not really. Even as Jens, I thought there was something there. There was a bit of clumsiness about him as well, and it's maybe just too late in the day. But was he 23? Not that old, was he?
He's 23.
Yeah, so coaching time in there. But yeah, like I said, I don't think he got back from Madrid. He was just seen as his clumsiness was culpable there. I think with the other two, it's really just the culture. Ange's, that reinforces Ange's culture of full commitment to the cause here. if there's anything less than 100%, you're gone. It's, and that just tells others that, yeah, by all means, be ambitious, have your career plan, but if you start doing it mid-season, really, I mean, Juranovic was doing that at a really important time for us with Champions League games and stuff, and not getting full engagement from him. So I think Ange was, spot on to put his foot down there and show others that, yep, if you want to go, but you're gone.
There was a suggestion that Giakoumakis asked the question about more money and then realised, I've
tried to walk it back
here. Tried to step it back because Ange didn't respond too kindly. But as you say, James, all the way in or all the way out, and looks like Giakoumakis will be all the way out. There's potential further exits I'd mentioned there, Muff, particularly in centre midfield. James McCarthy, Yusuke Ideguchi and Oliver Abelgard. I don't know if you think Abelgard's away. He's not gone yet.
No.
He's still part of the setup at the moment. Again, Ange's been quoted. He was asked directly about those three guys just across the weekend. He says, for the guys who are not getting opportunities, it really comes down to them and seeing what the best options are. I'm in dialogue with those guys. It's not about forcing people out, but there is a realism in terms of how much opportunity you get to play. If you mention those three guys, they're at an age where the less football they play, the fewer options they'll have. So no one's been forced out the door, but you can read between the lines with Ange's words there that everyone knows where they stand, and it's clear that for a range of reasons, there's no future at Celtic, unfortunately, for James McCarthy, Ideguchi or Abelgard.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about Abelgard. Obviously, none of us do. I think Ideguchi has just been very unfortunate. Same old Lawwell was cheating. Just difficult for him, the timing of that injury, and he never really got a chance to come back from it. So that's unfortunate. McCarthy's a real disappointing one for me. It's just, it happened too late. Always wanted to see him at Celtic. He finally got there, and I'm sure he did as well. We might come on to talk about Peter Law later in the show and how he offered McCarthy $4,000 when Wigan were offering him something like 20 or something like that, So it just happened too late for him, and it's going to be really sad because he's not going to play first team football at Celtic. So you have to ask what's the best move for him personally. He might be going, well, I'm on X grand a week for doing nothing. It's pretty alright, I'm up the road with my family, so we'll see where that goes, but it'd be good for him to go and play football somewhere, even Hibs or something like that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of James McCarthy, and I really wanted it to work out, but it looks like it hasn't. I suppose he's realised the dream and pulling on the hoops, but I think for him, the other two lads, Ideguchi and Abelgard, if they want to play football, if they're ambitious and don't just want to pick up a wage, they should be looking to move on.
Absolutely. The nature of it is Ange gets the players in, has a look, and he will play if you're in form or he feels that you're up to the task. It's been simply a case, I think we could all see fairly early on that the McCarthy type player was not fit into the system, as much as we all wanted it to work, because you know how much it meant to McCarthy to be in the squad, albeit that I think what's clear for seeing a lot of the output for Celtic TV and things like that, he's clearly a really highly valued member of the squad. I think his experience has come in really handy in Ange's first year as well. I think he's been a good support to McGregor in the dressing room. There's a lot of suggestions around that. So even though he may not have played as many games as we would all have hoped and he would have hoped, I think he still had a big impact in the time that he's been there around, in the background. But ultimately, a football player doesn't really care greatly about that. They want to be on the park and they want to be playing a Saturday or a Sunday. So Abelgard looked like he liked a tackle, looked a bit rigid for me. I think we've had a look at him and thought, nah, this isn't going to work. Ideguchi's the one that's a wee bit of a killer, to be honest with you. He came with a lot of high hopes. Looked like he was pretty silky on the ball and things like that. Just once you get a bad injury like that, it's really hard to come back from. I remember at the time after the tackle, there was loads of people saying, we take that tackle at the game, football's finished and things like that, but it was a bad one. Really, really bad one. Really bad
Shocker.
One. Yeah. And I think a lot of fans might say, well, we barely got to see Ideguchi and Abelgard, we just don't know, those guys weren't given a chance. But I think the way Ange trains, it's train as you play type stuff. There'll be lots of 11v11 bounce game type scenarios and behind closed doors friendlies up at Lennoxtown. He'll have seen enough. I think by now we trust his judgment, and I think
the process is working in that regard. Yeah.
I think in terms specifically of Ideguchi, the type of injury he had to come back and play, I thought he looked like he'd actually lost a wee half yard. I seen him in pre-season and he looked just kind of slow to react. I know it was pre-season, but just his mobility to get around the park seemed to have been affected by the injury. So, not having a lot of game time to impress Ange, coupled by the type of injury that he had, it's just, as James says, it's really, really unfortunate.
Yeah, he's also then trying to come back into a more established midfield than it was when he got injured, who are essentially flying. It's hard to pick who you're getting into that midfield never mind adding new guys to the mix. So all that put together, just he was the guy that everyone said, of all the guys that have come from Japan, he's the talent, and football's a funny old game.
Yeah. What's really interesting is that it's clear, I mentioned this last week, I think that Ange has been desperate to find that alternative number 6 to McGregor, whether it's to play with him or in place of him at times. He's tried it with, you could question how much Ange was involved in the McCarthy signing, separate conversation, but McCarthy's been an option there, Ideguchi and Abugard. They've all been possibilities as number 6s, and none of them have worked out. Now the big hope is that Iwata is the guy, and Ange seems to be very confident. He's speaking glowingly about him, so he seems very confident that that one's going to be one that works out. Final 3 quick fire questions on this debate before we move on. James, 2 are closed questions and 1 is open. I know
you're at the closing stage. This is okay.
This is okay. So question number 1, are we stronger now than when we entered the January window? Question number 2, is there anything you wish the club had done differently? And question number 3, are you happy with the work that Ange, Mark Lawwell and Michael Nicholson continue to do? Miff, I'll come to you first.
Hard to say if we're stronger or weaker, because that'll probably take a bit of time. On the face of it, I would say yes, because you've got 2 guys in that are clearly desperate to be there, in Johnston and O. Iwata, we're yet to see him play any significant game time, but the hope is that he'll be the same. Not too much I think we could have done differently. I think there seems to be a unity from boardroom down into the management of the playing staff, so fine with that. And I think the work that Lawwell, Nicholson and co are doing is clearly reaping benefits. I think we're ahead of the game in terms of our recruitment. We have replacements identified before people are leaving, or players are leaving, which is, it's just so un-Celtic like from what we'll have experienced up to this point, and long may it continue.
Yeah, this proactive approach, James, it seems to be making sense for some reason,
and it's very much working. So if you go in reverse order, that's the work of Nicholson and Mark Lawwell there. It's just, I've said it long enough on here, it's so strange to watch Celtic approach these things with such a professional attitude and execution. I don't think, for question 2, there's an awful lot more we could have done. I think fans are a bit more appreciative now of the confines we work in and how well we're training. You're looking at a net spend for Ange of about, I don't know, 5-6 million or something like that for the talent we've got on that pitch, and if you want to be business-like about it, the balance sheet values of those players on that pitch for a spend of 5 million is just outstanding. And what's the first question?
Just generally, are we stronger now than when we entered the window?
I know you're saying we don't know. I think we are. We've taken an attitude, a bad attitude. Juranovic out and put Johnston in, so I think that's stronger. With him and Ralston at the back, that alone is stronger. You've got versatility in Iwata. The main thing about UK Iwata and O is Ange wanted these guys strong, so I would be baffled if the 3 of those don't go on and really, really perform for us.
Yeah, interesting debate. As I say, we've still got a few hours of the window to go, so there might be a few curveballs, you never know, but interesting in terms of the work we've done just now. And yeah, over the piece, by and large, it looks to be a pretty positive window once again for Ange. Okay, let's move on to this week's Mystery Celt, and we'll start with a quick reminder of last week's Mystery Celt for anyone who missed it. So clue number 1, I won 17 caps for my country between 1995 and 2004. Clue number 2, I only ever won 1 league title with Celtic. And clue number 3, I've scored against AC Milan and Real Madrid in the Champions League. The answer, of course, Miff, was former Celtic striker Harold Bratback. Miff, you weren't here last week, did you get that one? You could have lied to me there, that was a great chance. What threw you? Did you have any decent guesses?
No, I didn't. But I was a huge Harold Bratback fan.
Yeah.
Despite the sitters.
Clue number 4, I've also scored against Celtic in the Champions League.
Who hasn't?
Oh, harsh.
There's plenty of them, you know what I mean?
So Bratback, of course, he joined from Rosenborg in December 97, had a couple of years at the club before then heading back to Scandinavia, joined FC Copenhagen and then ended up back at Rosenborg. He'll forever be remembered as the man who scored the clinching goal against St Johnston in May 1998 as we stopped the 10. And yep, as mentioned, he actually returned to score a double against Celtic in the Champions League in October 2001 with Rosenborg. James, your thoughts on his time at Celtic?
I thought he was a very important player in the grand scheme of things. I think he's one of those guys that didn't really live up to his talent, if we're being honest. I think he had a lot more talent in the bag that we didn't get to see. Whether it was just psychological, he was good when he was good, and he was, did he score 3 or 4 against Kilmarnock and he should have scored 8 or something like that? So was it Aki's or Kilmarnock, one of the two? He'll always be a popular figure, of course, but I think we could have got a lot more out of him if we'd got him the right time or the right attitude.
Yeah, I think he was, I wouldn't question his attitude, but I think he was
mentality, headspace.
I think he was a classic confidence type of player, wasn't he? You could see in him. I think when he was playing with Rosenborg and he was going out, I think he scored in the Bernabeu and different things. There's a different type of pressure, when you're doing it with a club that aren't expected to win. With Celtic, the whole pressure's on every single time you pull on the shirt, and I think that just weighed heavily against him.
It did. I think he was quite a quiet, sort of unassuming guy, and being the main striker for Celtic does carry a lot of responsibility. 60,000 there every week as well, at a time when we really needed a goal scorer too. I think it did weigh heavily on him, but as I say, I was a fan of his. He was an out-and-out goal scorer, and even though he did miss a lot of chances, he still scored quite a lot of goals for Celtic, and none more crucial than the goal against St Johnstone. Yeah,
he'll be fondly remembered. So, former Celtic striker Harold Brattbach. Okay, let's move on to this week's Mystery Celt. So, the score at the moment, in your absence, Smith, the boys lost again. So, for the calendar year, it's 2-1 to me at the moment. And clue number 1, I won 120 caps for my country.
Nakamura.
I'll move on. Good job, because it's coming right up. Clue 2, I've played for 3 teams in the English Premier League. Sounds like you might need clue number 3 as well, Muff.
Arthur Boric?
Craig Bellamy?
No, not Boric, not Bellamy. And clue number 3, in my only managerial job, I was sacked and then replaced by another ex-Celt. So, while the lads are having a think about that one, I want to let listeners know of a busy week we've got coming up over on the Celtic Exchange Plus. Ahead of the Livy game on Wednesday night, we'll have our usual pre-match show, followed by the post-match podcast shortly after the game itself. Then we're bringing our listeners a January transfer window special with Anthony Josip of Sky Sports News as we get the inside story on all of Celtic's transfer dealings. Anthony's a good friend of the show and is the man in the know when it comes to the real stories behind the transfer window, and we'll be bringing that one exclusively to subscribers on Friday afternoon. Finally, as we head into the weekend, we'll again have our pre- and post-match podcast for you either side of Sunday's visit to McDermott Park as the boys get set to take on St Johnstone in the Scottish Premiership. So that's 5 additional podcasts this week alone. If you haven't already done so, you can experience the Celtic Exchange Plus now, absolutely free with our 7-day trial. Simply visit thecelticexchange.com/sign-up to get started and to enjoy all the additional content we offer to subscribers. Beyond your free trial, we've got subscription options starting at just $1.50 a month, so if you enjoy what we do and want to hear even more from us across the week, then visit thecelticexchange.com/sign-up now. Muff, your smug face is annoying me. I know you've got it. Who wants to give me the answer?
It's not like you to do something current.
It's the man. Why are you in so much doubt?
Do you pick things for the 1920s or for, random things for the 80s and stuff like that? I'm amazed you picked something that's actually been in the news in the last week.
Yeah,
that's a gimme. Something's happening here.
Anyway, I'll not say too much more because Dave here will beep out the answer so that those at home can have a go at this one. But yep, you've got the correct answer. It's now 2 each. If you think you know the answer to this week's Mystery Celt and want to get involved, then tweet us at Celtic Exchange using the hashtag Mystery Celt.